All right, we're switching gears a little bit today because tomorrow I'm going to try to chop stalks. But as you can see by that puddle of oil down there, your 1955 has a little bit of a hydraulic leak that's been persistently getting worse over the course of this year. And I finally got the part ordered to fix it. It involves that fitting there. And you'll see what all we got going on here when we start tearing into it. But I'm gonna get the 1800 backed out and get this thing pulled out. Or am I? Yeah, it might not be too bad to work on it right now. I want to get behind it. So yeah, I'm gonna back the 1800 out. We're gonna pull this out in the center of the floor where it's easy to work on. That dang light, that is about annoying. Because we have to get to this line right there. So, let me set this up here for a minute. And that paper's got the part number written down on it, so I can tell you guys what it is when we get to that point. This is going to be low on hydraulic fluid, but I don't want to put any in it until we get done fixing. So you got oil. I haven't even power washed it yet because I was really hoping to be able to keep chopping stalks, so. Not bad for not being started since, well, last time it ran was the last time I chopped stalks, so beginning of October. Parts. These are all the disc blades to rebuild the soil finisher. That project's been a long time coming. I got blades, bearings. There's the knives for the applicator. Like I said, these are just the cheap ones for now, and when that set wears out, I'll get a set of chrome plated ones, but for now I'm just trying to get it put together. I'm not going to spend $50 a knife right off the bat. But at least these are good. These are Osmondson, so they're good made in the USA blades. So let me get stuff shuffled around here and we'll get to work. This should be a fairly short project. Okay, so first thing we gotta do is get the mud guard off, which ain't no big deal except for this particular screw right here. On a tractor without fender tanks probably wouldn't be much of an issue, but on this tractor you got to take a wrench and a Phillips bit and get in there and get that guy out. So it's doable. It's probably why most of the tractors you find these things have been thrown away, is guys took them off and didn't want to go through the trouble of putting them back on. But they do make a difference because they keep mud and shit from getting up on the hydraulic pump and the filter housing. Or on this tractor, the screen housing, because on this one we did the hydraulic filter upgrade and remote mounted a spin-on filter up under the hood, which I've showed before. Also, because this has fender tanks on it, If I remember right, when we first, because this is a reproduction, Dad bought it when we got the tractor. If I remember right, when we put this on, did this go on at the same? This might actually have gone on the same time we put the fender tanks on. Now that I think about it. But anyhow, because of the way the fender tanks are and the way you got to snake it out of there, normally this is square. We ended up having to miter that edge off to get it to go right. So we are after this hose right here, and as you can see, it's already dripping. This particular hose, and you will see once I get the fitting apart, the kind of goofy, it's interesting. This hose is a common leak point on these on basically all of the large frame 55, so 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 55. And then the early whites, I don't know what year they made the change, but it happened in the later, like 2105s and 285s, that vintage, later ones, I'm pretty sure into the 80s. They actually made a change and got rid of these fittings for a good reason, because they're junk. Actually, looks like I need to tighten up my clamps on there too. She's weeping a little bit. But so yeah, we'll talk more about it when I get it apart. But you take this fitting out, this goofy bastard, and then this fitting screws in. Maybaugh is actually having these made. They made their own part number for it. They kind of copied a white part number. The Maybaugh part number, if you want to call and order this thing from them, is a 30-302-0037F. I can't remember how much it was. The receipt's home because I ordered this thing a month and a half or so ago, so it's been a minute. So that fitting comes out, that fitting goes in, and then it converts that port to a regular 37-degree JIC, which is what it already is up here. So what made them choose this goofy Morphodite fitting, and you'll see just how goofy Morphodite it is. So I gotta remember what size wrench that is. I think it's 1 1/16. Okay, it's 1 1/8. And the other problem with this fitting is, because of where it's at, you cannot get out. You have to get up in behind this tube, and you can get like half a flat, flip the wrench, half a flat, flip the wrench. It's not fun. And then you gotta weasel out of there and weasel back in there, which that new fitting eliminates all this. I think I cannot remember because it's been so long. Actually, before we take that all the way out though, I'm gonna go get some carb cleaner and clean that area up so we don't contaminate it. All right, clean that up so we don't got to worry about dirt. But back to what I was saying, I don't remember, because it's been so long since I've had this apart, if I have to drain the oil down or if it will just leak out what's in the hose and be fine. Okay, we're good. Of course, it probably helps that the tractor's already low on oil. Okay, let me get it loose up top, and we'll pull that hose out of there, and you can see what's kind of screwed up about it. Okay, so this is the goofy bastard that we're working with here. So it's got this nut with that O-ring groove slot recess, whatever you want to call it, and then it's got this rubber seal with a Teflon ring, and the fitting pushes on this Teflon ring, which pushes on this lip that's on this seal, which as you can see is highly deteriorated because it's not a good design. And that's what actually does your sealing. And then there's also this bite type ferrule on here that's supposed to clamp down and push on the inside of that seal lip. And as you can see, because of how chewed up that seal is, it doesn't look good on paper and it doesn't work worth a shit in practice, which leads to this hose, even when it's brand new, basically leaking right out of the box. And this is actually, and then so basically what Maybaugh did, and I'm guessing that they just took a fitting out of a newer 2105 or whatever they had laying around and had a fitting company copy it, because this is basically the fitting that would go in there as a port adapter in the newer white. And it eliminates all the bull crap, and you just thread this in, that O-ring right there in that groove seals up against the face that's meant for that O-ring, and wham bam, you're done. There's no leaks. It converts it to a regular JIC off-the-shelf fitting, and you don't gotta deal with any of that crap, because not only does this leak, but as it stands, that is an AGCO only fitting. If you wanted to get this hose, if you blew this hose and you needed it, you have to go to AGCO to get it. Or, and I'm trying to remember if this is an AGCO hose. I think it is. Because it's not, yeah, it's not an NRP lay line. I don't think. I'm trying to remember if this is an AGCO hose or if Dad cut the fittings out of the original hose and crimped. But this isn't one of Dad's fittings, so that's why it's leading me to believe that this is an AGCO hose, because this fitting up here in the back of the pump is the exact same thing, just bigger. But for some reason, the ones in the back of the pump, you never really see them leaking. And that one's even more morphodite because it's like a 102 degree or so. It's over 90. It's an over 90 degree fitting to snake up in there where it needs to go. But anyhow, when we first got this tractor, this hose was bad. It was all, the wire was exposed, the rubber casing was coming off of it. It was a junk hose. We were going through fixing everything and ran into this fitting, and Dad tracked it down, and if I remember right, he tracked it down to, it was a Weatherhead fitting, now Eaton, because Eaton bought Weatherhead and ruined the company. So he took pictures of it. See, well, first off, he went and looked in all his Eaton Weatherhead catalogs, could not find it. So he took pictures of it, called his Weatherhead rep, sent pictures of it to him. The Weatherhead rep looked everywhere, up, down, sideways, everywhere. Could not find that fitting. It is a Weatherhead fitting, but they don't sell it to anybody but AGCO. So even Dad, being a hydraulic shop, cannot buy that fitting to make this hose. You have to go to AGCO. So they bastardized that. And they couldn't even his AGCO rep had never seen it before, and he couldn't even find the name for it, like what kind of fitting it is. So it's a bastard. But that's why I bought that adapter to fix this problem, because it drips when it's running. When you shut it off, as you can see from that puddle on the floor, it will just empty its guts out onto the floor. It leaks worse when there's no pressure, because the seal or O-ring, sealing ring, whatever you want to call it, so not actually an O-ring, relaxes and it just lets oil bypass it like it's not even there. So that's the sorry, that turned into more of a ordeal than needs a little bit of, put a little bit of Earl on that. And the nice thing about this fitting is, since it doesn't have a hose on it going into the port, and since the O-ring, since it seals on the O-ring, you don't need any pipe dope or anything like that. But it should now let me get a socket on it. No more trying to wrestle a wrench in there. I just put a plug on there, or a cap on the end of it for now, so that... Okay, I just had the socket on there. Why won't it go back? Well, you little bastard. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to give her the final. Okay, so I guess it doesn't completely eliminate the need for the wrench. I don't get why the socket won't go back on. There we go. Okay, why will it go on without the ratchet? Okay. Now it's just a matter of making that hose with regular ends on it. Okay, so the other thing that they did on this hose is a cardinal sin of hose assembly. They put a angled fitting on both ends. Why is having an angled fitting on both ends of a hose a problem, you may ask? Well, clocking becomes an issue. Because if you don't get them oriented right to each other, you go to put the hose on, you'll get one fitting on, the other one will end up like, say that one's like that, but it needs to be pointing that direction to get to the fitting. Now you got to try to twist the hose, which you may or may not be able to do depending on the wire rating of the hose and the size of the hose and all that. And if you do manage to get it twisted and get the fitting lined up and hooked up, you're going to suffer a premature hose failure, because hoses are not made to twist. They can bend, they can't twist. If you can even get the fitting to stay tight, because the hose is going to want to try to untwist, and if it's trying to untwist the right way, it may keep loosening the fitting. You'll have that issue too. So what we're going to do is we're going to crimp one end, get it ready to rock and roll. So do that right here. When at all possible, you want to try to just, if you got to have an angle on a hose, you want to have an angle on one side and straight on the other. That way you don't got to worry about clocking. Sometimes it's unavoidable. In this case, they probably could have done something different on this end and got to where they could have ran a straight on this end, but they didn't, so this is what we got to work with. So now we can get the 60 degree put on this side. And we go put it on the tractor, and we can put this side on, put this side on, twist the hose where it needs to be, mark it so that we don't lose the clocking, and crimp it, and we'll be good to go. Just gotta make sure the hose is dry so that whatever we're using for a marker actually sticks. Okay, I got it hooked up down here and fished through where it needs to go, and hooked up here, and it's clocked. It lays in nice. It's not like tensioned or taut anywhere. So We put a little mark right there on the fitting, and we put a little mark right there on the hose. And those are our clocking marks. So now we go ahead and grip it right there, and it will be good to go. So you make sure your marks are lined up and that the fitting's all the way on, and you're good. Alright, I got my, hopefully this cures the oil leak up here. I got rid of the one regular spiral hose clamp that was here and put a T-bar clamp there because there was already one here. Why I didn't change both of them, I don't know. Don't ask me, it's been too long ago. But this one was loose, or this one was, yeah, basically loose. And then I put that one on, so hopefully that quits weeping oil like it was. That's not pressure, that's not obviously not a pressure, that's the suction side of the pump, so at the most it would have been sucking air and weeping when it wasn't running. And I've topped the oil off. Surprisingly, it was only 2 quarts low. That looked like a lot more than a 2-quart puddle, but that's the thing about oil, it doesn't take very much oil to make a big puddle. So we're going to remove our drain pan. And let me get a rag so we can clean up that little puddle there. And I'm going to fire it up and let her run. And we'll see if I cleaned up all the oil that I could get to easily off of the priority valve. So if it leaks, we're going to know. And at this point, if it keeps on leaking, that means there's something messed up with that port, and it's time to change that priority valve out. But hopefully this cures the problem. So I'm going to fire it up, and we'll let her run for a while I'm back there cleaning up that oil spill. And well, that's neat. We're gonna do this right off the bat, huh? Hold, please. Nothing can ever be that simple. I don't know if it's a problem with the way my priority valve is machined or a problem with the way Maybach's having these things machined, but this little landing here past the threads isn't deep enough. My threads were bottoming out before this was actually bottoming out up against the recess in the back of the priority valve, so that's why it was leaking. The O-ring wasn't even touching. So we gotta chuck it up in the lathe and peel some threads out so that it can actually get all the way to the bottom of that port. Okay, just so that I can say I made the effort, we need to indicate this thing in, since you kind of need that flange there to remain consistent. So find a high spot. So right there. We need to, I don't know how long I'll be able to do this. I need to go about half that. I'd say that's close enough. That's pretty good for just throwing it in the chuck. Okay, I already touched off on it and popped off most of the zinc, which is also what made it hard to indicate in, which is why I said that half I thought was moving is close enough, is since it's zinc plated, there's no guarantee that the zinc is built up even all the way around, so you kind of gotta work with what you got. And it's an 1.5" 16 thread, which is not a standard 1" fine thread, naturally. Need to peel off some more because I need a 1/4 inch. So we don't have a tap, so I can't push the threads deeper in the hole. But we do have a thread file, so I can clean the threads up. A little more. And since the zinc was built up so far on this, Dad's thinking that's why it turns in so hard, is they built so much zinc up on the threads that it actually threw them out of tolerance, and the threads are actually now oversized. So they'd probably actually been better off to, if they were going to zinc plate it, mask off the end that goes into the port and just plate that side of the exposed side of the exposed side of the fitting. Now take a file, touch this edge up. When you're doing that on a lathe, never put your hand behind a file like this, because if it catches, it'll shove that thing right through your hand without you even flinching. And now, slow this bugger down. Find which thread pile's got a 16 on it. It should be that guy right there. And it indeed is. So we can now, running the lathe in reverse, doing that, I gotta put it from this side, which makes things a little bit more awkward. You gotta run the lathe backwards so that it throws the file off instead of sucking it in. Hit them good and see if I can peel some of that zinc off. It might thread in easier. What are you hearing, Teeter? Okay, cleaned it up, put it back together. Hopefully that takes care of our problem, fingers crossed. Well, it definitely helped peeling all of that zinc off of there, because you do that and it screws right in by hand. And then tighten it up, you can actually feel it come up hard against, at least I hope that's what I feel, it come up hard against the landing in there. So let's try this again, shall we? Please work. Looky there. Me feel better, so I'll just let her sit here and run for a minute while I'm cleaning up my mess, and hopefully there's no oil trail start showing up. All right, well, that solves that problem. Although for a split second when I walked back around the front of the tractor, I thought that we still had a problem because there was what looked like drops falling in the pan. I looked back up here with the light, and it's like, well, there's no oil where it's coming from. And then I realized it was that flashing light back there making shadows off of the pan that made it look like drips. So I just about had a heart attack for nothing. But that takes care of that problem, and now I just got to take care of that leak, which that's a project for a different day, because I'm pretty sure it's either my brake valve leaking or the transmission input shaft seal. I can't figure out which one's which because there's kind of an oil slick all around in there, but it's not a bad leak. After it warms up, it goes away, which leads me to believe it's the input shaft seal, because when the seal warms up, it starts sealing again. But that's not a quick afternoon fix. So I can put my cover back on and put tractors back in the barn, and tomorrow we can hopefully chop some stalks and not dump hydraulic oil all over the place. So yeah, I guess if I have a hard time believing that was a problem on Maybach's end. I gotta believe if that's been a common issue, they would have solved it by now. It could have just been the way my priority valve was machined, but I guess that's something to be aware of if you do decide to do this, is you might have to peel some threads off to get it all the way back in. And if you do buy it, even if you don't got to peel some threads off and it fits right, probably wouldn't hurt to have a thread file around and file all the zinc off them threads, and it'll screw in a hell of a lot easier. So, but that's what I got for you. This turned into more of a project than I thought it would, but I guess you got to see some machining out of it, so a little bit as it was. So I guess that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Hopefully actually doing something in the field if the weather cooperates.